There's John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. It's been another big week for the market, a lot of huge reveals that are starting to impact the singles market. We saw great cards this week from Hour of Devastation, and as you can imagine, they are impacting at least some individual cards. And we have a whole other week of previews to go, and the set's looking actually pretty amazing. Also, within the past week or more, we got a leak from Ixalan, which is a set that doesn't come out until September, but some of the information from the leak is already impacting the market. Now, I know there's a lot of players that are trying to avoid those Ixalan leaks so that they don't spoil either the gameplay or the story. So if we get to a card today that is impacted by Ixalan, I will give you kind of a spoiler warning before I start talking about it. So if you want to skip that card and go to the next, you certainly can do that. Now, quickly before we get started, if you check out the description below, you'll find a couple ways to help support the channel, one of which is our Amazon affiliate store. If you make any purchases there, a small percentage will come back to help us out. Also, you'll find our Patreon page linked below too. With that out of the way, let's get into the cards. We're going to start off, as we always do, with the top 5 standard cards that have lost value this week. Now, again, standard's a little bit slow this week. A lot of players are just going to wait now until our Devastation comes out to kind of see where the meta goes. Coming in at number 5, though, is Chandra Flamecaller. She's down 65 cents this week to 607. Now, she is still out there like Teamer Energy decks, but she is seeing a little bit less play since Mono Black Zombies and White Black Zombies have been a little bit less of the field recently, although it did look like they're starting to surge back maybe a little bit now that Aetherworks Marvel has been banned and players are looking for other options. Coming in at number 4 is Gideon, Ally of Zendikar, down 77 cents to 1712. Gideon's an interesting card. Obviously, we're getting closer and closer to him and a number of cards rotating out of standard. But Gideon always finds a way. I mean, right now, still seeing standard play in Mardu Vehicles decks, among others. But there's a question mark. Will Gideon be playable in this final meta before he rotates out? I kind of feel like the answer is yes. I think the card's powerful enough that there will be a use for Gideon going forward. Whether it's just more Mardu Vehicles or that and something else, I guess we'll wait and see. On top of that, Gideon's still seeing a lot of play in Legacy and Modern. I mean, you look at modern decks like Abzan, for example, or Eldrazi and Taxes in Legacy, Death and Taxes, Deathblade decks. They're running the card. Now, the reason the card is under $20 is just simply because of the print run of Battle for Zendikar. I feel like a mythic like this, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, this probably would have been like a $40, $50 card. It's just seeing a lot of play in a lot of different places. But there's just a lot of copies out there right now of Gideon. It's going to be interesting to see long-term how the market eventually absorbs these copies. Coming in at number 3, Torrential Gearhulk, down 85 cents to 21.22. Another card that's awesome and sees lots of play all over the place, but again, there's a lot of copies out there. It's going to be hard to sustain that $25 price point for a card like this. Now, there's another reason this might be a little soft this week, and it is one of the Hour of Devastation preview cards, and that's a Braid. I can see a lot of players running this because it has the deals 3 damage to target creature, and the Destroy artifact is just a bonus on top, but it really does punish anyone playing Gearhulks for sure. Now, you still get the trigger when it enters the battlefield, of course, but you lose that 5/6 creature, and a Braid is just a 2 casting cost instant spell. This will be interesting to watch in the future. Coming in number 2 is Aetherworks Marvel, down $1.18 to $5.29. Probably not a huge surprise here, considering the banning went into effect this week. But Aetherworks Marvel is still a good card. I mean, it's awesome in Commander. I don't think it's going to go down to absolutely nothing, but I'm sure by next week it will be easily found under $5. As a matter of fact, if you look at the big marketplaces right now, you can find this card for between 3 and 5 relatively easily. And coming in at number 1, the card that was hurt more than Aetherworks Marvel by the Aetherworks Marvel banning, Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger, down $2.18 to $18.90. Now, this is taking the hit, of course, because it was just a very popular card, very flashy card in those Aetherworks decks. It was a more expensive card as well, and that's why you're seeing the more drastic decline here. But again, much like Gideon, this is a card that sees play in other places, sometimes even Vintage, but definitely Legacy and Modern. So again, it's going to be interesting to see how the market absorbs these copies in the future. All right, let's look at the cards that have gained value this week. And again, it's mostly conservative gains. Coming in number 5, Walking Ballista, up 17 cents to 11.47. Card is still great, still seeing play in a lot of places. Actually, Workshop decks and Vintage are making use of this, which is really interesting. The Company Counters decks and Modern, of course, is still seeing play in like the Black-Green Energy decks and Standard, so it's kind of all over the place. There is a card, though, from Hour of Devastation that may slow its momentum a little bit. We're actually going to look at that card in just a second. Coming in number 4 is West Val Abbey, up 19 cents to 4.88. Again, not a huge climb here or anything like that, but this is a key card in like Mono Black Zombies. They do seem to be surging back at least a little bit this week. Coming in number 3 is Thing in the Ice, up 20 cents this week to 4.47. You might be asking yourself, Thing in the Ice? Really? I mean, it sees a little bit of play sometimes in control decks, but it isn't really popular right now. However, there was a card that was previewed for Hour of Devastation that could impact this card. Let's take a look at it. It's Solemnity. And this card is a huge hate card. It's going to have a huge impact on the market too, I'll tell you right now. It can hate out things like, Walking Ballista that we just saw, Affinity, even Infect if it was trying to make a comeback in Modern, messes around with +1/+1 strategies. And aside from all the hate, it also enables strategies. Things like -1/-1 counter strategies for things like Kitchen Finks and such. But one of the things that has caught some players' eye is its interaction with Thing in the Ice. Now, currently, the way the rules are written, if Thing in the Ice comes into play, and this is already in play, it would come into play with no counters. However, you would still have to cast an instant or sorcery to actually flip it, so it won't just flip automatically or anything like that. But keep this in mind. Every time a new set is released, they do a rules update. And the wording on this card is very vague. And we've seen cards like it before. That's kind of how we know how the rules work in this situation already. But they could simply say, if something enters the battlefield with counters on it, they still get the counters. I feel like that wouldn't be too much of a stretch when you actually read the wording of the card. So I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves on this interaction until we see the Hour of Devastation rules update, but there's a potential combo here. All right, next we have Ronos the Indomitable coming in at number 2, up 24 cents to 12.85. Ronos is still awesome. He was awesome last week, still awesome this week, showing up in like Counter Companies decks in Modern and Teamer Energy decks in Standard, among other places too. Coming in number 1, Chandra Torch of Defiance, up 40 cents to $23. And I think she's been number 1 for 2 or 3 weeks now. I think like 3 weeks on our list. And it's not a huge increase again, percentage-wise. It's not as big as maybe some of the other ones on the list. But she's still out there seeing play. Modern and Titan Shift decks, a lot of decks in Standard right now, like Mardu Vehicles, Teamer Energy, and a few others too. She's really all over the place. All right, let's move on to the top 5 Modern cards that have lost value this week. And we have some interesting talking points here, but we're going to start things off with an honorable mention. And I do want to warn you, if you're trying to avoid all things Ixalan, this card does tie in with some of those Ixalan leaks. So I want to give you fair notice, spoiler alert, if you want to skip ahead to the next card. All right, here we go. Riki, the History of Kamigawa. Week over week is down 8 cents right now to 5.73. However, if you look over the last 8 days or so, the card has gradually increased. And actually, this was like a $1 card before those leaks came out. So percentage-wise, it has increased a lot over the course of the last 8 days. I did want to point this card out. The reason for that is you're able to make out in the leak photograph of some of the Rares Mythics that the Planeswalkers appear to now be called Legendary Planeswalkers. So that leads to a lot of speculation that they're going to change the Planeswalker/Legendary rules around, and if Planeswalkers become Legendary, that could be big implications. Potentially, they could be your commander without actually having to have that little phrase that says they can be your commander. But maybe more importantly, in some ways, they're going to interact with a lot of spells that already exist that interact with Legendary spells. This is one of them. Whenever you play a Legendary spell, draw a card. So there's definitely an increased attention and focus on anything right now that interacts with Legendary. Coming in at number 5, Dark Confidant from Modern Masters 2015, down $1.35 to $46.44. Now, we've talked about this card a lot over the last few weeks, so I don't want to spend too much time, but long story short, the percentage of Jund decks in the field of Modern has gone down recently a little bit, And Jund was very popular a few months ago and had a little bit of a resurgence. So this card spiked then. It's stabilizing down right now. It still sees Jund play, still sees Abzan play, sees playing other decks too. So definitely one to watch for the future, but I think it's going to stabilize out right now, maybe around the $40, $45 mark. Coming in number 4, Cryptic Command from Modern Masters 2015, down $1.36 to $31.75. Still an amazing staple that shows up in many, many control style decks. However, I got to ask myself, we got 2 master sets coming out within months, right? We have Iconic Masters, and then we're going to have Masters 25. So is there a chance this card gets a reprint? I'd say a fairly high chance. Coming in number 3 is Seedborn Muse, down $1.75 to $21.74. This is the 9th edition version. This card spiked like a few months back. It's a great commander card. I think it's just stabilizing right now. Coming in number 2, Mox Opal, down $1.85 to $57.52. This is the Scars of Mirrodin version. Now, I did mention we did see a card that could hurt Affinity a little bit. Kind of wonder if this is impacting this card. Also, though, this card spiked pretty strongly a few months back when Titan Shift was really popular. Titan Shift has started to go down a little bit when it comes to percentage of the field now. That could be probably the bigger reason. And coming in at number 1, Living End. This is down $2.40 to $25.76. Not a huge decrease or anything. This card was just really hot going into like Vegas GP weekend, and it's just stabilizing now. Alright, let's move on to the cards that have gained value this week. Number 5, Skithrix, the Blight Dragon, up $2.61 to $19.97. This has been on our list before. It's a card that sees sometimes play in ad nauseam decks in Modern here and there, and it's also a great casual card, awesome for Commander at times. But this card, again, is getting a little more attention because of a Hour of Devastation preview, the Scorpion God, which seems to interact really well with -1/-1 counters. Imagine that. So definitely things with Infect, -1/-1 counters, are going to get some additional attention due to this card. Coming in number 4, Cavern of Souls, up $2.65 to $46.88. Now, there's a couple of reasons for this. First, the general one, probably the easiest one to explain, is this is an awesome card. It desperately needed a reprint for a long time. It finally got one, but it was in a limited set, Modern Masters 2017, and it was a Mythic Rare. So even though that did help the price a little bit, it's already starting to tick up. Second reason has something to do with Ixalan. So again, I'm going to wait a second, let you go to the next card. But again, it looks like from what we've seen, Ixalan is going to have a really strong tribal element to it, which has already gotten speculation moving for when it comes to maybe some tribal decks in Modern, Legacy, Commander, so on and so forth. Coming in at number 3 is Mirror Gallery. And again, I have to warn you, we're going to talk about Ixalan again. So actually, maybe you should just skip to the next card. Sorry about that. So anyway, here we go. Up $2.81 this week to $9.80. And basically the same reason we talked about earlier about the Legends rule. This is a card that says the Legends rule doesn't apply. Could have some interesting implications in the future, maybe. Alright, coming in at number 2. Chalice of the Void. This card just doesn't stop. Alright, first off, Mirrodin version up $6.40 to $80.30. Modern Masters up $7.34 to $79.72. I'm a little surprised the card has gotten to this point, especially again considering we have 2 master sets coming. I will say this about the card though. Don't spend $80 on it. Do your homework. Go to big marketplaces. Check out eBay, Amazon, TCG Player. There's still a lot of competition out there in those big places. You might be able to find the card cheaper than this. I would hopefully think you can find a copy for maybe between $70, $65, something like that. Slightly played copies you might be able to find cheaper. So do the legwork. This is a very high price for this card. I would be really nervous about spending it, especially on the cusp of 2 master sets. Coming at number 1, Horizon Canopy, up $16.35 this week to $87.31, of course, from Future Sight. A set that is a little bit rare when it comes to the print run in general, and Horizon Canopy is just a great card and has seen a lot of play over the years and continues to. It's in those Company Counters decks, it's in the Company Humans decks in Modern. It made an appearance in Lands decks and Legacy recently. It's all over the place. And again, it's got some extra attention recently coming out of GP Vegas, and it's going up and spiking right now. The card will probably snap back sooner than later, keep that in mind, but still, it's a card that definitely has upward momentum. Alright, let's move on to Legacy with the 5 cards of lost value this week. We're going to begin with an honorable mention, and it's Captain Sisse. And again, I'm going to talk about Ixalan a little bit, so you might want to skip ahead to the next card. Alright, here we go. She's down 238 to 1733. And again, we're talking about Legend and Legendary Rule cards, so she could have some huge implications in the future. Alright, one more honorable mention before we get going. I typically don't talk about foil cards, but this one's kind of unique because it's a variant foil. This is something they did back in like the Plane Shift set, where you could randomly find this foil with variant art on it, and this is Kev Walker art. This card is down a little bit this week, $11.44 to $70.29. Again, do your homework on this one, because I have seen it cheaper. Even on Amazon, you can get this card actually much cheaper if you really want a copy. But this went up in value. It almost made our list a couple times where it came in like number 6 out of the 5. But it was going up in value through the Amonkhet release as players were thinking about maybe Minotaur Tribal being a thing. It's just starting to come down now off some of that hype and the spike. So again, I usually don't talk about foil cards on these lists, but it was unique and it was a pretty big price shift, so I want to bring it up. Alright, coming in at number 5 is Fork from Unlimited, down $8.94 to $54.99 this week. And this is a great card for 93-94 format. Classic card. It did get a reprint and revised, but it is a reserve list card. So if you're looking for a copy, you can get the revised cheaper if you just want to play it. But again, the original versions, Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, are still pretty hot, even though it is going down a little this week. Coming in at number 4, Ali from Cairo, down 1081 to 5568. And we talked about this card last week, and I'll give you a quick recap of what I said. It was really special when it came out. Like, it did something we've never seen before. Obviously, we only had Alpha, Beta, Unlimited to reference, but at least at that time, it captured players' imaginations. Looking back, it's not a great card, but it does have its place in history, and it's going down rather significantly. If you can find a copy of this for like $40, $50, I would pick it up just for your collection. I think it does hold a special place in a lot of players' hearts. Coming in at number 3 is Living Plain, down $14.50 to $160.125. Pretty standard for this card. It seems to be sticking around the $150 to $180 mark. Number 2, Badlands from Unlimited, down $16 to $195. And coming in at number 1, Jizam Jin, down $74.52 this week to $525. So this card was spiking actually pretty heavily over the last couple weeks. I was expecting the snapback, and it did it. It got closer to its normal $500 price point. Although I wouldn't be shocked if the new normal for this card is like $525, $550. It's just a very popular card, great in 93-94, sees extensive play there, and again, it's just super iconic. Alright, let's move on to the cards that have gained value this week in Legacy, and we'll start off again with an honorable mention. It's Mana Echoes from Onslaught. And again, we're going to talk a little Ixalan here, so you might want to skip ahead if you don't want to hear that. Here we go, up $3.39 this week to $23.73. And again, due to the tribal nature of the Ixalan spoilers or leaks, this card definitely has gotten more attention. Alright, coming in number 5, Bayou from Unlimited, up $9.47 to $258.28. Number 4, Raging River, up $11.10 to $47.50. And this is a card that is very unique. Obviously, it did not see a reprint after Unlimited. One of the cards that didn't make it into Revised, but very unique, as you can see from that wall of text. Coming in at number 3, Volcanic Island from Unlimited, up $25.02 to $449.99. Number 2, it's back again, the Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale, up $109.78 to $1,309.73. And pretty standard for this card. It sticks around that $1,200 price point. It did get a little attention coming out of GP Vegas because of a land stack did top 8 there, so maybe that is contributing a little bit to it, but this does seem pretty standard for this card. And finally, coming in at number 1, for the second week in a row, Drop of Honey up $164.03 to $350. However, I do want to caution you here, even though week over week it has gone up a little bit, it actually crashed pretty hard over the last 48 hours or so. The card's already lost, I think, close to about $100 of value within the last couple of days. So it does feel like this is starting to come back down. So what's the deal with this card? There's a couple things going on. 2 copies in the sideboard in that lands deck and Legacy. That probably drew some attention to it, but I have to believe that ultimately that maybe was the attention that drew a buyout, because this is not a natural spike. A card that shows up as a 2 of in a sideboard of a Legacy deck, even if it is a deck that does well, a deck that costs a huge amount of money to invest in due to the fact you need 4 Tabernacles, I don't really think that's driving this price. I think this is unnatural and very, very high. So my assumption is that deck list perhaps drew somebody's attention to the card, and it's pretty easy to buy out something like Drop of Honey because it's a very old Arabian Nights card, and I think someone went out and did that. It appears they may already be selling them back to the market, which made sense if they had to do that on credit. So I'd be really weary of this card at $350 or more. Wait a week or two. Feels like it's already starting to come down. And if you're really desperate for an alternative, and this is another reason why I feel like the inflation can't last, this card is a white identical version of it. All right, so this came out in Planar Chaos when they were doing the plane shifted or time shifted versions of old cards in different colors. And this is the white version of Drop of Honey. Very, very, very affordable. And at least if you can't afford that, and for some reason you happen to own 4 Tabernacles and you want to build that lands deck and you need 2 Drop of Honeys, the lands deck does run things like Horizon Canopy, again, another real cheap card, that you could more than likely, I think, easily cast this over that. So there you go. That's my advice on that one. So having said that, those are the cards for this week. And yeah, we have a lot going on right now in the market, so I'm really interested to see how things evolve. I mean, we'll get another week of previews for Hour of Devastation coming up this week, and then things will be in full swing shortly after that with the SCG Open, with the new Standard, and then, of course, the Pro Tour. So a lot's going to be going on. Stay tuned. Until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.